My name's Carl Kim and I'm a podiatric surgeon and I specialize in foot and ankle surgery. On these medical mission trips, we're specializing primarily in clubfoot corrections. Some of the children are too young to be able to manipulate with casting and conservative efforts. So as they get older, the deformity is more rigid and difficult to treat in other ways. So we need to use surgical skills and abilities there.
I'm Maggie Sagabo. I am a registered nurse in the ICU in Louisville, Kentucky.
We talked about this medical mission that we've been doing for the last several years. And Steve Miller, who's one of my mentors, and I've been on most of my missions with Steve, maybe all but 2. This is my 9th mission trip, and I've been on about 7 with Steve.
So my name is Dr. Stephen Miller. I'm a podiatrist from the northwest part of Washington State. I've been involved in medical missions for a lot of years, starting around 1998 when I was invited to join a team. They needed a surgeon. When I was invited, I was involved in an organization called Fundación Guatemalteca Pediatrica, which was dedicated to children primarily out of Guatemala City, but worked on children from all over the country. And the team I was on their 7th mission over 7 years. So they were very experienced. They were concentrating on foot and ankle surgery, and we did an enormous amount of clubfoot. But clubfoot is quite prevalent in these developing countries for a lot of reasons. Healing the children started in the United States out of Spokane, Washington, where a lady tried to bring a child into the country and pretty much got thwarted by the red tape to the point that the child died before he got cardiac care. So she wanted to change that, and over the years has developed the Healing the Children concept, where there's 13 chapters around the United States. I was invited to join up in the Seattle chapter where they were looking for a team leader of a specific foot and ankle team. By happenstance, got invited to Nepal, and Nepal I really honed my skills, where we went there every year for 8 years. It was a hospital built by Rotary. You'll see I'm heavily involved in Rotary. A Rotary Club took over as my sponsor, and always use networking with Rotary because it's such a great organization for resources, personal connections in the country, grant funding, and just general support.
Yes, there is. There are certain genetic predispositions to disease. One example is Northern Scandinavians got a lot more multiple sclerosis than Hispanic countries. Hispanic countries have a lot more club feet than Northern European countries. It's genetic. And you can throw in bad nutrition and malnutrition and some other causes, and we see a lot of club feet here.
Good. So one of the deformities that we treat a lot of in these developing nations is a forgotten deformity called clubfoot, which means that the foot is turned in three planes. It's turned in this plane where it rotates to the side. It's turned downward, something like a horse's foot, and it's turned in this plane whereby you turn it sort of towards the other foot. But it's supposed to walk with the foot plantigrade, or the bottom of the foot on the floor. Well, it doesn't really do that in clubfoot. Uncorrected, they end up walking on the top of their foot. You can see that the foot's turned over and they end up walking on the top of the foot.
There's been several patients that we've seen repeatedly. The best part of these trips is that screening day, seeing the patients come back. On the OR table, when we're done, we see the foot position and the correction we achieve, but man, when they come back, we get to see them and hear their story and hear their parents tell us how grateful they are and what their life is now able to allow their child. It's very special. One special patient that we had is Esther, and she came to us for the first time about 3 years ago, and that was my first mission trip here in Guatemala. I met her, and her feet were both turned in and clubbed, and it was just amazing to watch her walk, and it was hard to believe that she could walk. And I think she was 7 years old at the time, and just to understand from her father explaining how that deformity has affected her life. We corrected her one club foot the first year, and she came back to us last year and we corrected her other foot. So for the first time, immediately on the post-op scenario, she has 2 straight feet. When she came back this year and we got to see her walking and running and standing, it was just incredible to see that follow through for 3 years here in a row.
Well, with Esther too, you could see her like smiling in those last photos. I didn't get to meet her the first 2 years, but this year, hearing that she was outside playing with other kids and not being able to do that the other 2 years too. I mean, she's your prime example.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
she's been our poster child of this.
yeah, just that smile.
I was home that summer, and my stepmother, I live in Seattle, my stepmother had saved a magazine for me, a little community magazine called Mill Creek, and it had an article about a man named Michael Malahan. He's an audiologist, and how he'd been coming to Guatemala for 10 years for audiology medical missions. And that interested me because I had a neighbor boy who's deaf, who comes to the community center all the time to play. So I thought of him when reading that article, and I went on the website. This is a Healing the Children medical mission, or a nonprofit, because I go on their website and I see that they also do clubfoot medical missions. Esther, I learned about her from Dick. He called me in April of 2016 because he delivers wheelchairs, and he had met the family there, and he'd seen that she lives up in my area. So he came back in March of 2017 for her first foot to be operated on, and then last year in 2018 for her second foot to be operated on. They're doing really beautiful work here, and I knew this is the place. If anyone could fix this girl's feet, it's right here.
The first mission, it didn't really hit me until check-in day on Saturday that what I've done could maybe affect a child's health or a child's outcome during a surgery. And I had a brief time where my emotions were pretty overwhelming when I realized that I had to sit down. And because all of these, there's 100 kids in here during check-in day, and it was very difficult for me to grasp that and deal with that at first. Heavy emotion, got through it, and I figured, okay, I'm strong and I can handle this now. By my second mission, I figured I'm an old timer and I'm going to handle this now. And they called me down because of a patient. Steve called me down to one of these check-in rooms, screening rooms, because of a patient that he wanted a couple of pictures of. And I had a nice camera, shot a couple of pictures of Esther. About 2 or 3 minutes after coming into the room with Esther, and she had 2 horribly clubbed feet. And it was just the absolute most perfect, picture-perfect little Guatemalan girl in Guatemalan attire that I'd ever seen in my life. Obviously very scared, obviously very with her father there, hugging her father. I was pretty overwhelmed with that same kind of emotion at that point that I thought I was done with. And I was hit even harder. And I had to leave the room. I had an uncontrollable urge to attempt to put a smile on this little girl's face because the emotions were extremely strong. So I went up to the bodega, rifled through some boxes to find a stuffed animal to bring back down, and I get emotional just thinking about it. And I recomposed myself and went back downstairs to see Esther and take some pictures of her and do what I was supposed to do. I said to myself then, the emotions were so powerful, I said to myself at that moment that I'm going to follow this little girl. I'm going to make a point of understanding how this mission affects her life. And I've done that for the last 2 years.